Mr. Dimon, had you been sworn in, you would face no legal liability for the comment that I think you've made that is erroneous, because we here are here because we're in touch with Main Street in our district. And you put forward the idea that that there were $350 billion that you had given to your chief investment office because there weren't small and medium-sized businesses in the United States that were creditworthy that wanted the money. And I assure you, there isn't a member of this panel that couldn't bring you 100 small and medium-sized businesses, creditworthy, in need of loans from you. And instead, you took the $350 million to London. And that's why we're here, because if you'd made the small and medium-sized business loans, you wouldn't be here. And some of that money in London went to the gambling tables in London. And whether it was $2 billion lost or some multiple of that, that's why we're here. And I would hope that you would leave here dedicated to taking the money away from your London operations and lending it to small and medium-sized businesses. And if you can't find 100 in each one of our districts, we'll do it for you. Now, I'd like to, without objection, put in the record an editorial by the wild socialists over at Bloomberg. There's no objection.
Without objection.
They point to a study just published by the IMF that says that your bank enjoys a $14 billion subsidy, that its cost of funds is some 0.8% lower because of the implicit federal guarantee. What we saw in 2008 is a belief around the world that if a bank your size was going to go under, there would be a bailout not just of insured depositors, but of all creditors. And that belief reduces your costs by 0.8% of your total funds, is responsible for $14 billion. You are in a position where you are simply too big to fail. And this raises, and I think the gentleman from Wisconsin made this point. You lost $2 billion, according, or some multiple of that. You happen to be very well financed, but you bet over $300 billion. You're lucky that and fortunate and wise that you didn't lose more. Can you say on behalf of all the banks with over $100 billion in assets that all of them could have survived a mistake this size? I'll ask you to answer that for the record. The question is, why should we allow you to be so big that if you go under, we are going to have to bail out your creditors?
So banks should take risks relative to their size and capability, so you can't compare all the banks. And I would venture, and I'm not going to change what you believe, but a lot of banks were a port in the storm. I know it's convenient to blame them all for everything, but J.P. Morgan's size and capability and diversification in 08, 09, and 2010 allowed us to continue to do the things that you wanted us to do. We never stopped making loans. We bought Bear Stearns at the request of the United States government. We helped the FDIC fund by buying WAMU. We lent money to California, New Jersey. It allowed us to do it. So we try to be a conservative company that does the right thing. Every now and then we make mistakes.
And how can medium-sized banks compete against you when your cost of capital is reduced by 80 basis points, 0.8%, because of a belief that if they go under, we'll let them go under, but if you go under, we'll bail out your creditors?
And I don't believe that's true. I'm going to give you two facts, if you don't mind. Fact number one is we borrow in the marketplace, unsecured, with the smartest people in the world. It costs us 200 basis points over Treasury. It costs the average single-A industrial like 100 basis points over Treasury. So we are, if everyone was so smart and knew that we were too big to fail, we'd be trained at 10 basis points over Treasury.
Well, after you've lost all that money in London, I would expect the creditors would be reluctant to lend you money at less than that rate.
Most of that $350 billion predominantly is in the United States. It's not in London. Most of it's here. The second is the FDIC report, which looks at average funding costs. because we had studied this report a way back, and almost all of it, if I remember correctly, was related to mix. We're a money center bank. We have a tremendous sum of money, which we keep very short-term and overnight, which costs us very little right now because of the way the yield curve is. But we have to put out, we're the checking account for large corporations, including some nations, and so we invest that money very short and make almost no money on it. It shows up as a low funding cost, but our actual cost of funds for retail deposits, middle market deposits, and negotiated deposits is probably pretty much like everybody else.
There isn't a small
Thank
or
you,
medium-sized
Mr.
banker
Can-
who agrees with you.
Mr.
And I yield back.
Canseco, for 5 minutes.